Sir, in the last 30 years, we've disinvested in our military in the 70s. We recapped it in the 80s. We disinvested in the 90s. We recapped it in 2000. And now, in the last few years, we've disinvested again, such that today, and you know this, but I have a question for you because we need your leadership in this. You're going to be straddling the civilian advice world and also the military world under Secretary of Defense. Today, we're spending about 100 basis points less than our 30-year average. That's about $200 billion less than our 30-year average. That's not the most important number, though. The most important number is the last time we had a Secretary of Defense actually do a bottom-up mission requirement request for funds was Secretary Bob Gates in 2011, did a 5-year plan. And for 2016, he requested a number that in today's dollars was $100 billion greater. And that was before than what we allocated in 2016. And that's before ISIS, before Crimea, before Syria. Sir, I have, you can't speak to the specific number, but I'd like to know how you plan to address your goal of solvency and security in an environment where today, every dime we spend on our military, every dime we spend on our VA and veterans, and every dime we spend on most of our domestic programs, frankly, is borrowed, given that in the last 8 years we've borrowed 35% of what we spend as a federal government. And today, the baseline budget for the next 10 years says that we'll do the same thing. That means that every dime that we spend on the U.S. military, every dime you're going to be concerned with as Secretary of Defense, is fundamentally borrowed. In that situation, General, how will you approach being Secretary of Defense and addressing the needs of the military with us in that environment?
Senator, as has been mentioned by several of the members of this committee, one of the most important things we do as a government, the most important thing, is maintain the independence and the freedom of this country. So to me, that's a priority. At the same time, we have got to try to figure out, and you've seen the waxing and waning of our military size and our strength, as we try to adapt that military to the realities. We don't want a military that just breaks the bank, but at the same time, we cannot solve this debt problem on the backs of our military alone. This is why I think I need to support strongly the congressional leaders who are trying to repeal sequestration, the Budget Control Act, to ensure that we put the Congress back into a position to prioritize where this money is being spent. And we're going to have to make hard calls, but I consider it an abrogation of our generation's responsibility to transfer a debt of this size to our children.